Joining me now for his reaction to what we've been hearing about all day and Patrick Brown being ousted from the Conservative Party's leadership race is Cory Hann, who served as the communications director for the party under four leaders: Prime Minister Stephen Harper, previous interim leader Rona Ambrose, Andrew Scheer, and most recently Erin O'Toole. Cory, thanks so much for making the time. We can just, I suppose, start out with the piece I mentioned in the introduction. Patrick Brown no longer able to be a candidate for the Conservative Party's leadership race. He had signed up what his campaign says was 150,000 members. What does this mean for the Conservative Party and the way that this leadership race moves forward, now having a candidate who signed up 150,000 members no longer participating in that leadership race?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for having me, Wyatt. Okay, I think first and foremost, kind of acknowledging the bit of unprecedented situation that they're in which the Conservative Party has found themselves disqualifying a candidate that may not have been the perceived front runner necessarily, but certainly in that top tier of the ballot, maybe in those top three positions. So definitely an unusual situation, and it kind of goes to the questions that we've seen all day is exactly what was the Conservative Party made aware of in regards to Patrick Brown, and why did they feel was necessary to act as decisively as they did. In my experience as communications director for the party through two of the previous leaderships that we held, the Leadership Election Organizing Committee, the LEOC, they don't take a decision like this lightly. So it leads me to believe that the allegations are quite substantial and extensive. Otherwise, the LEOC and the party itself wouldn't have put themselves in a position to be criticized for, maybe acting too harshly on what would otherwise maybe be perceived as a smaller potatoes case, so to speak. So I think that's kind of what we've seen develop through the day is the question of what exactly was the Conservative Party made aware of. We've heard from Patrick Brown. We're not entirely sure, at least from his perspective, what the party told him. If we take what he has said at face value, he was left with more questions than answers as to what the Conservative Party was asking of his campaign and what the allegations were. So this isn't a story that's done today. I think it's going to be a story that continues to develop over the coming days as the Conservative Party itself and the Leadership Election Organizing Committee likely finds themselves in a position where they're going to have to start to disclose a little more information to maybe put some of these questions to bed.
And in my interview that I had with Patrick Brown earlier today, he, as you said just there, repeated some of those same things in the interview. He said that he believes that these allegations are coming from people who were Pierre Poilievre's supporters. The president of the Conservative Party, Rob Batherson, has done numerous interviews where he's rejected that claim, saying it actually came from people within the Brown campaign itself. Patrick Brown saying he doesn't have very many details on this. He told me today in my interview with him that he feels it's hard to respond to an allegation that he says he doesn't have very much information on. I mean, what should people make of that constant back and forth between all of the campaigns? Because it really seems as if most of the campaigns are weighing in on this. And what does it mean for a leadership race that, again, as basically just repeating my last question, in the sense of what does it mean for a leadership race that it now has one candidate out of the leadership race, and that candidate being a high-profile candidate that was perceived by many people as one of the front runners?
Yeah, look, I think it's a question that a lot of Conservative members and Canadians, probably even more at large, have on their minds is, what do we make of the situation? We have Patrick Brown saying that he was not given many details into what the allegations were. Conservative Party saying opposite, essentially. This is one of those situations where I think a bit of transparency is going to go a long way for all the parties involved. So if Patrick Brown puts his cards on the table and says, look, this is exactly what I was presented by the Conservative Party, and if it's not as detailed as he would like, or even maybe Canadians would expect, then the question goes back to the Conservative Party of what it is that they had in front of them. The other side of that coin is, look, if Patrick Brown's saying that he hasn't been given a whole lot of information as to what the Conservative Party has, the Conservative Party could very easily put that to bed on the flip side by bringing forth what exactly the allegations were. So right now it seems to be a lot of people holding their cards close to their chest as far as what information each other has. But in my estimation on this one, it can all be solved by a bit of transparency and from everyone involved, the party right up to the Patrick Brown campaign. To your second question, as far as what does it mean, I guess, strategically for the race, a top tier candidate now out who has sold reportedly 150,000 memberships, what happens there? So I guess from a process side, what happens is the party is going to have to decide how they treat ballots that come back with Patrick Brown ranked within them. Because my understanding is there are some ballots that have been mailed out with Patrick Brown's name on it. So in all likelihood, they are going to receive ballots back and with him checked off on the ballot on one of the rankings, in all likelihood, either 1 through 6. And then they have to decide how you treat that. Because how you treat that ballot really affects the remainder of the other candidates and their positioning on subsequent balloting rounds. So that's kind of the process side of it. Strategically, now it opens up the door to 150,000 members who may be signed up to support Patrick, unable to do so. So if I am one of the other candidates, that presents an opportunity for me to really sell my message to those Patrick Brown supporters and say, look, Patrick Brown's not in this race. But here are some things that I'm going to be standing for that I think we can find some common ground on and really start to position themselves as the next best choice for those Patrick Brown supporters. Will there be some that won't vote at all? Of course, that's going to happen. But I do believe that the majority of those that Patrick Brown would have signed up are still going to vote, and it's still worthwhile for the different candidates to present their vision to those members and sell them on what it is that they want to bring to the Conservative Party and how they will govern differently as an eventual prime minister.
And when we look at that, I've asked this in the numerous questions I've asked you, and you've touched on it in your responses. Do you foresee a specific campaign, doing the best at winning over those 150,000 members that Patrick Brown and his campaign said that they had signed up?
Yeah, look, I think there are some natural allies in this race for Patrick Brown and Patrick Brown supporters. I see Jean Charest and Scott Aitchison probably being a little more natural fit for those that maybe have signed up through Patrick Brown and signed up to support his message. I find a lot of common ground among the messages you're hearing from those two candidates, but that doesn't mean that the other candidates can't benefit. Certainly Wesleyan Lewis and Roman Baber can make their pitch now, and knowing kind of how and why these particular members signed up for Patrick Brown, the message he delivers. Now you can kind of curate your message a little bit more to that audience. And certainly the same with Pierre Poilievre. I mean, Pierre and Patrick certainly have taken the gloves off through this entire race, but that doesn't mean that those votes are necessarily completely off the table for Pierre. So lots of time left to kind of make those overtures. I understand there's even a debate this week, an unsanctioned debate, I guess if we want to call it that. Certainly not an official debate. But those are all opportunities that will present themselves for the remaining candidates in this race and trying to make that sales pitch to those Patrick Brown members.
Okay, that is former communications director for the Conservative Party, Cory Hann. Cory, thanks so much for providing your perspective on obviously what unprecedented events in the Conservative leadership race.
No problem at all, Wyatt. Thanks for having me.